And a very good evening to you. If you're just joining us here on SA Tonight on eNCA, my name is Sally Burdett and my colleagues are live in Diepsloot tonight. We've got Shahan Ramkissoon, Pule Letshwiti-Jones and Aviwe Mtila. And Aviwe, particular thanks to you. You've been there the whole day. We appreciate you wanting to stay on to see this story through. I just want to update you on what has happened in the last few days in Diepsloot and why it is at the focus of our broadcast this evening on eNCA. So we know that Diepsloot is a poor area. It's sandwiched between some very wealthy areas, Steyn City and Dainfern in Johannesburg. It's an area that started in 1995. It was a transit camp, really. People were settled there temporarily, but eventually it became a permanent home and some stands were released. So since then, about 4,900 homes have actually been built through the RDP Reconstruction and Development Programme, but we know that it's home to at least 140,000 people. So the broad majority of people don't have a proper home to live in. It is a poor area, and we know that crime has been rampant for years. There have been uprisings of xenophobic-based violence, but we have seen criminality run rampant. I mentioned the case in 2014 where 3 little girls were raped and murdered, and that perpetrator was brought to book. But many, many crimes go unpunished. And over the weekend, things seem to come to a head. 7 people were killed. Aviwe Mtila, you're going to tell us more about exactly what we know happened. 7 people were killed. 14 other people, we understand, are still injured in hospital. And the community of Diepsloot so angry about the violence and not being heard and broken promises, they say. Many interventions just seem to have come to very little on the part of the police. Threatened a shutdown today. So what happened in response? The police, Minister Bheki Cele, and, of course, our new police commissioner, Fani Masemola, arrived to speak to the people of Diepsloot. What they decided to do is the following, is that as of this evening, the police deploying the tactical response teams, 30 members coming into the area. Currently, the area only has 6 police vans. That's for 140,000 people and counting. 16 more vans have been promised. We also understand that 20 members of the Public Order Policing Unit are also coming into the area. And that is to deal with the issue of crime. There are lots of competing issues around crime. And I think, Pule, it was you earlier saying that the real issue is the fact that so many people are desperately poor. Over 60% of young people just have no prospect of getting a job, and often people turn to crime out of desperation. But also, we cannot ignore what we heard from the ANC ward councillor telling us just a few moments ago, that there are very real concerns about undocumented foreigners. Now, a lot of people who don't have the papers doesn't mean they're criminals. It just means that they might not have the right documentation. And on eNCA, we have done many, many programs about how very difficult it is as a foreigner to get refugee papers from Home Affairs. It can be a very difficult thing. So just because you don't have your right documents in South Africa doesn't make you a criminal. It makes you illegal in a sense. But the concern seems to be that some members of the community believe that criminals, foreigners who are criminals, have taken hold and are controlling this area. One concern raised earlier is that because there's growing anti-foreigner sentiment in other areas, a lot of foreigners have moved in to Diepsloot. They find it something of a safe haven. This is what people are saying. Of course, the facts need to be established. But I'd like to just bring in our reporters and our anchor in Diepsloot this evening. And Aviwe, you have been on the story all day. Just talk to us a little bit about what you've learned about these 7 people who were killed over the weekend, which really seem to have brought the community to a boiling point.
Sally, I actually first want to touch on the area that these murders happened, Extension 1. You mentioned earlier on how Diepsloot in itself is flanked by richness and how poor it is. But of course, there are those that are better off than the rest. Extension 1 is literally, in just trying to be sensitive, it's the bottom of the barrel, Sally, in terms of the poverty there. It's just shacks all around, and my colleague and I, Teddy Munyembani, had to actually skip through and try to avoid some of the sewage as we were making our way to one of these shacks that we heard that one of these murders happened in. It's those type of people, Sally, that lived in that condition in Extension 1 that actually were killed in these gruesome killings. It actually makes you wonder what the actual motive was behind this. But of course, we hear, for example, that one of them was a building contractor, Willie, who upon realizing that there were people around here and the people around the situation telling that it was Zimbabwean nationals that were trying to steal some of his belongings. Upon him realizing, he was shot, and when he was taken to hospital, he actually succumbed to those wounds even before he arrived in hospital. In fact, in having these numerous conversations in the particular house that I went to and speaking to the neighbors there, they tell me that it's a sad situation where a 14-year-old girl, Sally, was trying to defend the parents there when she was met by bullets herself. The people that lost their lives in that particular incident were the 14-year-old girl as well as her mother. The father is part of the 14 that are currently in hospital. But the sad situation, Sally, is how these people are literally so poverty-stricken, Sally. A building contractor, they all live in shacks in Extension 1 in Diepsloot, which is literally just poverty all around. There's a stench of sewage all around, Sally. So these perpetrators committed these crimes, Sally, to people that really had nothing. It's really quite devastating that they'd go to those extent, moving from one shack to the next, and just the gruesome nature of how all of this killings were happening. And even besides the gunshot, we hear how some of them had wounds in their head, some of those 14 that are in hospital. Really sad scenes that we come to understand in what really comes out from a horror movie, essentially, Sally.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we know that there have been no arrests as yet after these weekend killings. Have police given any indication on whether they feel that this is the work of an organised syndicate, or is it sort of random acts of people who are just, you know, desperate and robbing?
So police comment around this, Sally, has been, I beg your pardon, police comment around this, Sally, has been quite guarded. The only official comment that we've had from police is from the police minister in terms of the interventions that will happen, and the other comment that we had from the police commissioner, just cementing what the police minister said, Bheki Cele, but there's no real indication of who they think these culprits are, or any suspects, or any effort, in fact, as the community members would put it, that has come from the Diepsloot police station. Hence, we've seen these tempers that have been simmering, and we've actually heard how Diepsloot itself was under fire yesterday, us coming to be met by, of course, the aftermath of all of that. So the community anger comes from exactly that the police on these killings seem to be quite clueless in terms of who the culprits are, while the community themselves says they're well aware who they are. Of course, there are fears, especially when I arrived here in the morning, Sally. No one wanted to talk to us, even though they had the specific information. They'd give us the information on the sideline. Some of them committed to interviews, but not wanting their faces to be shown, or they wanted their voices to be distorted, because they know who these culprits are. They know, they say they live with them in the community. They know exactly what's been happening, but the issue that they really have is how there's been a lack of accountability, or lack of help when it comes to the South African Police Service, and just helping the community get to the bottom of these murders.
Yeah, Aviwe, I want to bring in Shahan now. Shahan, and it's so interesting that we're hearing from members of the community, and I'm wondering if you're getting a better sense from them where they point the finger of blame. Is it towards police inaction over rampant criminality? Is it to foreigners who've infiltrated? Do you get a sense that the community has an idea of what's at the heart of this problem?
You know, the one thing that I've heard over and over again is that it's been police inaction, and that's what the people I've spoken to said, and not particularly mentioning foreigners, because as you heard earlier, to the one individual I spoke to who's a member of the community, he said crime is crime. You know, and they believe that the police are failing to basically do their jobs, which is why this community seems to be a haven for criminals. And I'm going to speak to more community members to get a sense of what they're saying. And Mama Patience, just come here and shot for us. You told me that you've been living here for years and crime has been an issue for years.
Yes. I'm not happy in Diepsloot to stay here in Diepsloot, because a lot of corruption, lot of crimes. All the times the people is killing the people, another one people. We are not happy in Diepsloot. We are not happy.
Yeah. Do you think police are not doing enough to deal with crime?
The police is not doing nothing. Nothing is coming, and just say we are coming, we are coming. After that is just stay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you want to happen to feel safe?
I think Amaberete must come to look the Diepsloot.
Yeah.
Yes, it's better. If Amaberete is coming in Diepsloot, it's better.
Okay, so Sally, just one of the residents here, she's been living here for years, Patience Mutlong, but I'm going to speak to other residents as well. So we know that crime, of course, is a major concern for residents in Diepsloot. There's no doubt about that. What do you think is at the root of the crime in this area and why it's not being addressed?
They want to bring berets and police. They're going to get police and bring it police and a beret. And you see what you know? You must say, they're going to bring a police and a soldier. Maybe it was going to be red because this was going to come in a monster. You see? So Diepsloot is going to come in a monster. So I don't know why Diepsloot is going to happen, because Diepsloot was an election. I've been here in 2001. But what is happening here? I don't know why.
Yeah. And who do you think's behind the crime in the area?
I don't know. The man who is going to have papers, xenophobia or something, we're going to take the man back to their country. So we're going to get back to maybe have papers, everything.
Yeah. But you know, how do you know that foreigners are behind the crime in the area? How can you confidently say that?
Because I know I've been saying here for a long time. So I know this is before doing this. Because even though, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for your time. So, you know, that's one of the answers to the questions you asked me about. It's two things, actually, if you speak to residents here. It's inaction from the police over the years. That gentleman says he's been living in the area since 2001, and he thinks that crime has been out of control since then. And then he's also, if you ask the question, who do you think's behind crime, that's another resident who actually points the finger to foreigners living in the area. Again, we are not saying that as eNCA or as a reporter or anchor on this channel. That's what we're hearing from the community members who we actually speak to.
Yeah, and it strikes me that the first step towards really understanding and trying to resolve is to listen. Aptly named Mama Patience, Shahan, a woman who has lived with the situation for so long, and she is quite rightly absolutely fed up. Pule Letshwiti-Jones, I want to bring you in here. You have covered a lot of service delivery protests. You have seen and spoken to communities who are angry, who don't feel listened to.
Concerns that we are trying to uncover as to whether there has been consistency in that message. But while we've been standing here, we've also been notified that there's been a convoy of officials that's entered into the community. I'm going to try to get answers to who are some of those officials that actually went in the Diepsloot community in a convoy. But before we get into that, I'm going to speak to one of the youth patrolling forums members here, Menzi, joining us on eNCA this evening. Menzi, thank you very much for joining us and making time to speak to us. Now, if you can tell us, you say that you try to fight crime in this area. What is the problem in Diepsloot?
No, you know the problem in Diepsloot, my man, here as young ones, all of us, I can say, we are unemployed. And hence, we are unemployed as civilians. So i-crime kula iyenza increase khona. So tina us as youth league and as youth people of Diepsloot, we suggested ukuthi for us ukuthi nathi si prevent i-crime, we must help the police. Sisiza amapolice regarding patrolling, patrolling and some of things that regarding crime. Yes. So what we need right now, because of we are unemployed and some of us are not working. So we need government to come and support us. Because of those people who patrol, most of them, they are not working. And even ending, you won't patrol the whole night. Then, after patrolling the whole night, there is nothing. Abantwana, they are crying, no, ubaba, he went out, end of the night, so we need government is support. They must put something on us. Just
a quick one. You said that the officials who went in, who are those cars that went in? Who drove inside there?
The people, labantu abaceda ukudrive phakathi manje abase home affairs. Yes. They came here ukuthi bazo-checka ukuthi what is happening.
This time?
Yeah, yes, okay. Right now. And thina into esurpriseayo ukuthi khona bafika manje bebakuphi during the day. They just come now, but that one it doesn't matter. Tina, what we need ukuthi government, it must support us as patrol. We won't patrol the whole night, singa benefit needs. I know what is prevent the crime as youth. We are helping because of some of us, we're not qualifying with this police.
I hear you now, yes. But it's a community as well.
Yes.
It's a community that you're trying to protect.
Yes, we are trying to protect the community. Yeah. So, Tina, what we're asking from Steluguti, from now on, we'll go to the councillors and write the letter. Stelu councillor, Stelu sees as patroller. We need something into so benefit. You can't tell if it's possible. Chief. Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us on eNCA. Just maybe in quick translation, what Minister Cele is saying is that the onus is upon them to protect the community and to ensure that residents here are safe. However, the supply chain shouldn't be disturbed. They want government to meet them halfway and at least incentivize the whole process by giving them some bit of money which they can then go back home and feed their families, because he raised the point that unemployment is rife in the community, and just like we said earlier, it's sitting at a quite a staggering 65.5% rate, which is quite scary. That's youth unemployment. Unemployment is sitting at 35.3%, which are some of the stats that cannot go ignored. Numbers don't lie, and we're also going to try and see if really it's factual what he's saying when he said that there's some officials actually drove inside. It will be quite interesting to track whether indeed these officials from Home Affairs, and to see what is their mission here coming at this time of the night here in Diepsloot.
Yeah, it certainly will. And Pule Letshwiti-Jones, thank you very much for that update. And I also want to say thank you very much to Aviwe Mtila. Aviwe, you have done incredible work bringing us the voice of the community, because that's really what we want to know. We want to know what people living in these areas feel and are thinking. And what has struck me is how many people within the community really want to make a difference, really care about what's happening in their community, and want to be part of a solution. Let's hope that this is the beginning of a really important discussion to gather together the good people of Diepsloot to perhaps make a real and lasting difference. We're taking a break. We're back with you in a moment.